first thing I'd like to say is thank God that I'm here. I'm very, very appreciative and happy to be here. And I don't know if you know it or not, but I am a Virginian. I was born in Victoria, Virginia, and raised in Washington, D.C. So it's a pleasure to be here in Richmond to be able to say hello and speak to and share my day with you. I thank you for all coming out. I'm very appreciative of that. And I would also like to say to Miss Yamaja Jubilee and Professor Roy Boyd, thank you very much for working with me. They are my organizers, as well as Renee and Lady B, is that correct? Thank you so much for coming. And also to the Black History Museum and the staff, thank you very, very much for having me here and allowing me to show you my work. Now, I'm going to start off by talking about my artwork, which when I first was asked to show my artwork, I was like, you want me to present my artwork to the public? I'm not an artist. I don't think that I'm an artist, because this is a hobby of mine, and it's been this way since I've been out of school. And I never ever thought that anyone would ever be interested in seeing my work. But I am very, very pleased to be able to share it. And again, I don't think that I'm an artist. I'm an unorthodox artist, because if I see something that I like to draw or just want to try something, I just start drawing. I don't have any margins, or I don't center my work. I just do it, because that's what I love to do. So some of the heads might be cut off, or the fingers or something like that. Or the mouth might be crooked or something like that, but this is me, this is my work, and I love what I do. And again, oh my goodness. Okay. But like I said, I enjoy what I'm doing, and before I go any further, Mr. Boyd, would you come up here for a minute, please? Professor Roy Boyd asked me, after reading my book, he asked me, would I be interested in designing a cover for him, because he has written a book about Michael Jackson. And again, I was just amazed, because you want me to design something for you? And he said yes. So he let me read the script, so I could know what was going on with the book and everything. So I just put a few things together and sketched out a few photos of Michael Jackson and presented them to him. And he was like, at first when he saw the things, he went, and I said, oh, okay, you don't like it, I understand. I really understand. And then he said, no, I love it. And I said, really? And I said, well, I didn't put anything together. I just drew these, I sketched these photos and everything. So I'm going to leave it up to you of how you want to design it or, fix it up. And you choose whichever one you want to for your cover. So he chose this is the original. This is the original sketch that I made for him, and this is the one that he chose for his book. His book is God Bless His Soul. And I was just like really thrilled when he said, okay. And also you can see this is the back of the cover. So I was very happy about that. I was very appreciative. So I just decided I wanted to make a big print of the front of the cover. Which is this right here. Boy, would you accept this from me? I'd like to dedicate this. I would like to give it to you because I'm so thankful for you choosing my work. And I'm really excited about it. I'm still excited, and I wanted you to have this. I had actually prepared a speech and everything, but I can't find it. I have no idea where it's at, but I'm just going to speak from my heart. I'm not very good in speaking, you know. I just like to do what I do, and that's sing and write music and paint. This is what I do. So if I say the wrong things, please forgive me. It's not from my heart. It's from my age. But I also want to thank a lot of my friends and family members that's here with me. And one of my school members, my school friend that we were in school, junior high school? Yes, Elaine Madison.
All right.
She's here. And I'm so happy. And then I have my two sisters that came from Maryland to be with me today. Julia, Pollard, and Ryan. Thank you so much for coming. And then I have my daughter-in-law here with me. Sharon Marable. And then I have two nieces in the back. Would you stand, my darlings? Yes, Niecy. Thank you so much for coming. Now, I'm going to just talk a little bit about my book. The name of my book is titled, He's a Funny Cat, Miss Hyde. Now, my book is my 32 years and some of my life before I met James Brown, where I was raised up and the schools that I went to, and touching a little bit about my friends who I went to school and how I started singing with a group called Four Jewels in Washington, D.C. But before that, I had started a little group of my own. And it was three of us, it was three girls. It was myself, Zeola Gay, Marvin Gaye's sister, and Yvonne Smith. And then we had another girl to join us later on, which was Sharon Williams. We had a group together, but we didn't have a name at that time. We started while we were in school. And we met this gentleman named Chester Simmons, and he was he was with Harvey Fuqua and the Moonblows, long time ago, right? But anyway, we met him, and he decided that he wanted to work with us and help us, train us to be better singers and everything. And he introduced us to Bo Diddley. And we met Bo Diddley. Bo Diddley was living in Washington, D.C. on Rittenhouse. Before that, he was Southeast, I think it was. And he took an interest in us, and he started working with us, and we did a little song called Why Is Everybody Always Picking on Me? And now, we took that title from the, I think it was the Coasters. Yes, they had, it was Charlie Brown. Yeah, the song was called Charlie Brown, but we took that little saying right there and made a song out of it. And Zeola was the one that would say, why is everybody picking on me? Because she couldn't really sing. Even though she was Marvin Gaye's sister, but she had a hard time, keeping her everything. But, so we said, Ziola did it. Ziola did it. So that little part wasn't in it. And she'd come in and say, why is everybody always picking on me? You know, well, that was the reason. She couldn't sing very well. But anyway, we stayed together for about, I think about 2 years. And while rehearsing and practicing at Bo Diddley's home, we met the Four Jewels. Now, I was familiar with the Four Jewels because we all went to school together at Roosevelt High School. And two of the girls were a grade ahead of me, and Margie Clark. So I knew of them, and they also had some hit records out, you know, around the area. And they were losing one of their singers, so they wanted to start auditioning for another girl because they were called the Four Jewels at that time. And Bo Diddley came to me and said, Martha, I think that you should audition to sing with the Four Jewels. And I said, well, I don't know, you know, I have a group of my own. And he said, yeah, but I think it would be good for you. You know, I think you would fit in. And I said, well, I don't know, because those girls could really sing, and I didn't really consider myself. I was just a background singer, and I just didn't think that I would fit in. But anyway, I did audition for them, and I became one of the Jewels. And I told my girls, well, Bo Diddley had named us the Boettes. So I told the Boettes, well, I said, I'm kind of moving on up now. You know that song, you know, moving on up. All right, so singing with the Four Jewels, you know, I became one of the Four Jewels, and from there we recorded quite a few songs like Johnny Jealousy, and that's what they put erasers on pencils for. And then we left Chester Simmons, and they were working with him as well. We left Chester Simmons and went to New York City, and we met this gentleman named Smokey Robinson, who became our manager. We recorded a song at that time called Opportunity. And Opportunity became a national hit. And that's how we started working at the Howard Theater and Apollo Theater and different places like that. We started traveling extensively, and we met James Brown. Well, the first place we met James Brown was at the Howard Theater. We were performing. We was on stage and we were performing and everything, and the crowd just started hollering and screaming at us like, oh my goodness, they really like the way that we sing. We must be really getting down. And I just like, oh my goodness, and you know, really good and everything, and kept on hearing this noise, and all of a sudden we found out that James Brown was in the audience. Okay, so that's what all the ruckus was about. Well, after the show, we went backstage, and we were in our dressing room, you know, getting ready for the next show and everything, because at that time, when they had the shows at the Howard Theater, we used to have maybe like 6 or 7 shows a day. 6 or 7 shows a day. And it was like that at every theater, like from the Howard Theater to the Royal Theater in Baltimore, and then the Uptown in Philadelphia, Apollo Theater in New York City, and the Regal in Chicago. So it was like a chain. We would go from one theater to the other, and we had, like I said, we had 6 to 7 shows a day for a whole week. So that was kind of tight. So every time you come off the stage, you were getting ready to go back on the stage after the last performer would come on the stage for that particular show. But anyway, after this show, James Brown came to our door. He knocked on the door. Well, we didn't know it was him, and he knocked on the door, and we said, "Who is it?" "It's me." We said, "Me? Who's me?" "It's me, James Brown." And we looked at each other and like, so I'm kind of telling you some of my stories in my book. So anyway, so we answered the door, And he came in and said, and he went right straight to the mirror. How y'all feel? How you doing? Yeah, girls, really sound good. That sound real good. And we were just like in awe. You know, here's James Brown standing in front of us in our dressing room. You know, so we're doing fine. Nice to meet you. You know, so we told him our names and everything, and he said, I was in town and I just decided to come by, and he said, I didn't know that I was going to see such a great show. He said, so it's nice to meet y'all, and I hope to see you around. And then he left. And after he left, we went having a fit and everything. So it was just great to meet him then. And then maybe like 4 months later, we met him again at the Apollo Theater. The very same thing happened. The very same thing happened. We were on stage, getting down, at least we thought, and all the people, oh, they really like the way that we sound. Yeah, Johnny, Johnson, woo, or just singing and everything, you know. Found out Mr. Brown is in the audience. Again, he came to our dressing room and told us how much he enjoyed the show, and then that's when he asked us to join his review. We were like, oh, okay, so we were kind of young at that time, and he told us to meet him at Carr's Beach. Any of you remember a place called Carr's Beach?
Yes.
In Maryland?
Yes.
Yeah, well, he was going to perform at Carr's Beach maybe like 2 months later, and he wanted us to meet him there because he wanted us to sign a contract and everything. So we met him at the Carr's Beach 2 months later, and he had the contract, sure enough, and we had to take the contract home to our parents and tell them what was happening, that James Brown wanted us to travel with him, and they were just as excited as we were. They said, James, you mean the James Brown, the James Brown, Mr. Dynamite, yes. Well, so we got the okay from our parents, and we joined him, and we stayed with Mr. Brown for about 1.5 years, working with him in his review. The girls decided that they wanted to kind of go back home, and they missed their families and everything. Well, I didn't. I mean, not that I didn't miss my family, but I wasn't ready to go home. Mr. Brown was at his peak. This was in 1966. And I wasn't ready to go home. This was something very exciting for me, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I went to him and I said, Mr. Brown, you know the ladies are going to stay at home this time. He said, yeah, I know. I said, well, I don't want to leave. You know, I'd like to continue to work with you. It's fine, y'all. You stay right here. You stay with me as long as you want to. He said, you're going to be my personal background singer. So at that time, it was no other women on the show. And I did stay with him up until the year of 2000. And he was quite difficult to work with, but I think that's why he's called the hardest working man in show business, because he believed in rehearsals and you know, just continuous rehearsals, and we would stay for weeks at a time in Augusta, Georgia, rehearsing. But I think it paid off, you know, because he was an amazing entertainer, and I thank God that I had the opportunity to work with him. From there, I left Mr. Brown in 2000, and I joined Maceo Parker. Now, Mr. Brown didn't like that. He said, "Look, you need to come on back home where you been at. Really need to work for you. Come on back home where you been at." But I like the idea of working with Maceo Parker because it was just something different, and he had been with Mr. Brown for many years. So it was just like still being with family. So I enjoyed working with him. I left Maceo Park in 2016. Still working on my career while I was with him, I was able to kind of like spread my wings, because when I was with Mr. Brown, I couldn't really do much of anything else. It's just working with him, and really wasn't concentrating on starting a solo career of my own. But that happened when I joined Maceo Parker, because he was saying, you know, Ms. Hyde, you need to do anything else. If you want to do something else, you're more than welcome. Just let me know so I can, have somebody to come in. So that worked because I was open and I was free and I was able to start creating and recording my own albums and everything like that. So I appreciated working with him for the 16 years. It was great. It was fabulous. And, I've got to get out there on my own and do my own thing. So here I am. Here I am. And is there any questions that you would like to ask?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got about 5, but I'm with WTJU in Charlottesville. I'm doing a long-running vintage rhythm and blues show out there.
Yes.
And I collect 45s. My whole show is the rhythm and blues 45s.
Okay.
Now, were you ever recording for People Records? And if so, how many 45s on People did you have? Because I know Lynn Collins had some, and Martha Whitney had some, and Lee Austin, who I have no idea who Lee Austin is. Maybe you can tell me that once. Anyway, that's enough for now.
Okay. Well, first, Leon Austin was Mr. Brown's cousin. He was a relative of Mr. Brown. And that's who Mr. Brown would always kind of hang around and be with when he was at home in Augusta, Georgia. We both lived in Augusta, Georgia. So I think that he felt that he should record him. And
he just had 145, you believe, or more?
I think he has more. Maybe a couple more. Yes. And now, what was the other question?
Did you yourself?
No, I wasn't on People's records. No, I wasn't. I was on Funky People or something like that. Don't ask me. Mr. Boyd can tell me. You remember that? You remember the album label that I was on with Mr. Brown?
No, I
No.
don't.
It wasn't.
So what happened, let me say this, this is why I have an album with the group called the Speedometers. Because they always they asked me, they said, Martha, Mr. Brown recorded Lynn Collins, Vicki Anderson, and Martha Whitney. But he didn't record you. You didn't have an album with him. And why is that? I said, well, read my book. You'll find out. And
Your first album was on the South Side.
yes, yes, Mr. Brown produced that album, Martha Hyde, South Soul Records featuring Martha Hyde. But as far as like Mr. Brown recording you, now he produced the album, so he had other people to write the songs, and so it wasn't like he worked with Martha Whitney and Lynn Collins and Martha Whitney, Vicki Anderson. It wasn't the same. But I wasn't very happy about my first album. My very first album was South Soul Records featuring Martha Hyde and the Godfather of Soul produced the album.
What year was that?
That was 1979. 1979. And it was quickly done, and it was during the disco era.
Right.
Well, actually, when the disco era was going out, so I got lost in the shuffle, And I got lost in the shuffle. But I still, every once in a while, there are people who come around and have this album. I was like, oh my gosh, you got this album? But I was telling a story about the group that I worked with, the Speedometers. When they asked me why I didn't record, why Mr. Brown didn't record an album on me, and I told them to look at my book, so they said, well, we would like to record an album on you, and that's why it's called Soul Overdue. And actually, the label of the CD it was the same color as People labels, and it just gave you that feeling of a long time ago. So I think they wanted me, yeah. So that's what was happening with that. Any other questions?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Would you like to talk a little bit about your incredible backup singing on the Big Payback?
Yes. For the very first time in my whole my entire singing career. I played in Canada just last week in Edmonton, Regina, and Victoria with the JBs, the original JBs, and so they had played the payback at the hotel in the lounge. And so everybody was saying, I wonder who the girl in the high voice. I didn't say anything. But when the night of our concert, I went on stage and I said, I'm going to do my version of the Big Payback. My version is called the Big Payback. Mr. Brown's version is the Payback. But you know that voice on the top? The very first thing that you hear, that's me. Ever said that, you know, so I felt pretty good about it, and plus they enjoyed my version of the Payback. It's called the Big Payback. More questions?
Hello.
Hello.
I'm so glad to be here.
Oh, thank you for coming.
I wanted to know, are you still living in Spain and singing in Spain, and if so, what's that like?
It's great. Yes, I am living in Spain, and I'm singing in Spain and other parts of Europe. And that was one of my reasons for moving to Spain, because I worked quite a bit out of the country, more in Europe and Japan and you know, South America, and more so than here in the States. And this is why I'm so happy and so honored to be here. Because I don't get a chance to perform that much here in the States. So to be here and share, like I said, to share this day with you is great. And and Spain is great too. I live off of the Mediterranean Sea, and so it's beautiful and warm, good weather, you know, for my age. Yes.
Hello. Well, just out of curiosity, have you ever met with or had an opportunity to work with Darlene Love?
I've met Darlene Love just at a one of the TV shows. She was performing the same time, but I never sang with her or anything, you know. But I admire her too, because she's from my era as well. Maybe just a little bit more before me, but yeah. Never know. Any more questions?
Are you going to be performing with the JBs at the Apollo? They're going to be performing October the 20th.
The JBs now, there is the original JBs, and then there's the new JBs. Now the new JBs is with Fred Wesley and the new JBs. And then we are the original JBs, and that's the band members that was with Mr. Brown when he passed away. And Christian McBride, which is a bass player, a jazz bass player, he, I think last year or year before last, he formed a show, tribute to James Brown, and I think that might be what you're talking about. So I think it's a couple of the band members that are performing with him, but it's not, yeah. So we're looking forward to performing there soon, hopefully. Yes. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, I have a question.
Sure.
I want to hear about your art pieces.
Oh, okay.
Beautiful pieces.
Okay. I'll explain. Maybe I can kind of explain to you. The two vases, they're antique vase that was in one of my rooms in France. Please don't ask me what part of France, but I stayed in an old castle. I stayed in a castle that was made out of a hotel, and the two vases was in my room, and in my hotel room, and I was just kind of laying across my bed and looking at the vase, and I was like, wow, it's really strange, and they're really old, so I just kind of went and checked them out and everything, and I really liked them, so I took a picture, And I just decided to make them my own. I said, well, I'll have them at my home all the time. Or if someone would like to purchase them or something, they're for sale. But I called them oh, wait a minute. I do remember the name of the city. It was Carcassonne, France. Yeah, and that's a medieval city that sits on top of a mountain. It's really beautiful, and you can see it from a distance when you're driving, towards it, and it's amazing. It's still open, and it's a lot of shops and everything that's there, And I stayed there when I played with Mr. Brown at the amphitheater in Carcassonne, and these two was in the room. Yes. My painting here, I call it Jesus Praying. That's the title, and the way that how I painted this photo. My father was talking to me one day, and he said, Martha, I want to get a picture for a painting for my church. And I said, okay, Dad, I'll go with you. We'll go shopping. I'll help you pick out one. He said, no, we're not going to go shopping. And I said, okay. All right, we're not going to go shopping. He said, no, I want you to paint it. And I said, me? Well, my youngest brother was a painter. He was an art teacher as well. And he actually taught school in, where was it?
It was in Prince George's County.
Prince George's County. And then when he moved here to Richmond, it was, oh my gosh, do you remember? Oh my gosh. Okay, my age again, though. Anyway, he taught school here in Richmond. And so he was the artist of the family. And I used to doodle around, doodle and just draw pictures, but I didn't think that my father was paying any attention. So when he asked me to paint this painting, I was just amazed, and I was like, okay, I'll do the best I can. And he said, oh, you can do it. And I did. I painted the picture. Now this picture is hanging up in Taylor's Chapel, A&E Zion Church in South Hill, Virginia. Yes, and this is a replica of the painting. This painting that's on the floor here, I call it In God's Hands, which is I don't know if you can see it from there, but it's this painting here. And how I was in Germany it was a club that I was playing with Mr. Brown. And when I went to my dressing room, there was nothing on the walls but a little small piece of paper. They had it tagged, on the wall. So I walked over to the wall and I kind of opened it up, spread it out, and it was this print. It was a print of this painting here. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is beautiful. And I said, why is it just pinned on the wall like this and, closed up, nobody's... I said, okay, well, I'm just going to take it with me. So I took it with me, and I really loved it, and I wanted to paint it for my mother. So when I finished the painting, before I could say, Mother, this is for you, she said, oh, that's my painting. That's mine. I said, yeah, but Mom, wait a minute. No, that's my painting. I said, okay. So I just let it go like that. But I just feel I love it, and I will always keep it. I lost my mother about 3 years ago, so I guess I will never get rid of it because it meant so much to her and to me. And I just feel like we're all in God's hands, and she's in God's hands right now. So that was my inspiration to do this painting. So Prince, I wanted to do the painting of Prince because I had the pleasure to work with him. He was a very good friend of Maceo Parker. And so Maceo Parker sometimes would take time out to go out on the road with Prince. And Maceo Parker's band, we had the pleasure to open up for him in New Jersey. There's a big auditorium. It's called CSAC or C something in New Jersey. Arnold, what's the large place in New Jersey that they have the big shows now?
MedLife.
Yes, that's it.
MedLife.
Yes, that's it. That's where we played with Prince, you know. So I was like on stage with Prince, and at first I didn't care for him too much because I just felt like he was like James Brown. And when he would, before we did the show with him, he would come out on the road sometimes to our show, and the only song that he would come on stage and play was the song that I sang. And but then when it was time for me to say hello to him, or he'd come around, I'd start messing with my shoes because I didn't want to speak to him. You know, I didn't want to go through that thing because James Brown had a way, you know, just had a little ego going for him, and I thought that Prince was the same way, so I didn't want to bother with that. And so I would kind of like mess with my shoes or start looking around, something like this when he'd come around, so he would go on about his business. But then when I was in London, I was living in France one time, and my mother came over to visit me. So we went to London because he was playing at the H2O, and I wanted my mother to see the show. So we went to his show, and that's where I met him. I finally met him there, and he was very, very nice. And I was like really surprised, like, okay, I kind of like him, he's cool. But anyway, after he passed away, I kind of thought about him, and I was like, wow. You know, I don't know what might have happened if I had spoke to him or something, or if I had talked with him before, you know, just telling myself he wasn't a cool guy. But anyway, I just wanted to just do something different, you know, and here he is. So he's with me all the time now. And again, Michael Jackson, this is the one that Mr. Board chose to be his cover for his book. And some of these are they're inside of his book. So these are some of the sketches that I made for him, the original sketches that I made for him. So they're in his book as well. Aretha Franklin, of course, you know, the Queen of Soul, right? And she, I did have the pleasure to work with her, and not to really work with her, but I was on the stage with her and had a chance to sing with her background singers. We were in Detroit, Michigan, and Mr. Brown did an album called James Brown and Friends. So it was Aretha Franklin, Wilson Pickett, Robert Palmer, Joe Cocker, and Billy Joel, not Billy Joel, Billy Vaser, Yes, absolutely, yes. So they were on the show, and it was great working with her. I had a chance to talk with her, and I had met her before then, which were years back. But it was great being on the stage with her and being able to sing with her background singers. You know, it was really cool. And she is one of my mentors, so of course I was going to pay a tribute to her. And here's her painting. This This is another painting that another time I was in Carcassonne in my room, and this is one of the antique chairs that was in the room where I was staying. And again, when I start staring at something, most likely I'll end up drawing it, making a photo of it and end up drawing. But I just thought it was just really beautiful. The colors were great. I sometimes say that I'm going to end up painting something, but then I end up leaving it alone, because every time I decide to go ahead and put some color to it, and something tells me, no, just leave it like it is, And this is what I did with this painting. This was an antique chair from Carcassonne.
What color was the chair?
It was like a lavenderish, pinkish, and right in here where it's very light, and I guess that's where it was born. So the colors were like, it was more pinkish in there than lavender. But it was beautiful. It was really beautiful.
Martha, can I just take sort of a sister privilege to let everyone know, and for you to explain? Most often when we see entertainers and we think that life is beautiful and they're on the stage and the clothes that they wear, but people really don't realize how hard it is in the business. They don't know how hard it is when you're traveling, you're doing a city tour, and you got one-nighters and one-nighters and one-nighters, and you're on the bus and all of that. Share that. I had the privilege.
Yeah, you share it.
I had the privilege of being with Martha and her mom when she was living in, we were on tour with James in Miami, Orlando, Tampa, and they were all one-nighters. And I was on the bus with the crew and the uniforms and Mr. Filliard with the band, and it's a production. And people really don't know, and I used to say, how do you do this? She said, I don't know. And they would be eating at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to bed at 6, and then up again at 8. And people really don't realize the lives that entertainers live, because we see the glitz and the glamour, but it's hard business. It's really, really hard business. And also some of the places that they had to go during the segregation in the South, not being able to stay in luxury hotels and the like. So I commend you for hanging in there and doing what you do. It's hard business. It really is. And so people just need to know that. They see, we're watching your video behind you, and it's so beautiful. It's hard work.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so is there any more questions? Yes, ma'am.
It's not really a question. It's the story that you told about doing James Brown's hair and me being a hairdresser. You've met me before. But anyway, would you have me do James Brown's hair? And if you could tell us that story again.
Tell us all how we can all have James Brown. Explain to us how we can have it.
Well, I'm going to tell you a couple of I did his hair for about 15 years, and there were a few people before me. Henry Stallings. Do you know Henry Stallings? Do you know? Oh, okay. Henry Stallings, and also one of the famous flames used to do his hair, Bobby Bennett. He used to do his hair also. But when I started doing his hair, he told me how to put the rollers in his hair. Now I would have to do his hair like the first thing in the morning when we get to the hotel, we got to the hotel, and I would have to do his hair in the mornings, and before we went to work, I would do his hair. When we got to the gig, I would put his hair in rollers, and after the show, I would put his hair in rollers. And he told me how he wanted his rollers. And he said, "Now, Miss let me tell you something. This is the way you do my hair. I want you to put a roller right here. Right here. Remember? Right there. Right there. There. And just come down. And down. Other side. There. There. Now, if it's not right, you have to take it out." I said, "Yes, sir. Think you can do that?" I said, "Well, yes, sir. I'll try. I'll try to do that." And I would roll his hair, and he'd look at it, and he'd say, "That's right, Miss Hyde. That's right. Good." Now, when he would be upset, if he was a little uptight about something, it wasn't very easy to get along with him. So one morning I went to his room and I set out the rollers and set up everything, his hair dryer, waited for him to come into the room. And he came into the room, I could see that he wasn't in the best mood. He sat down in the chair and he looked me up and down like this. "How you doing, Miss Hyde?" I said, "I'm doing fine." He said, "You can't do my hair today." I said, "Sir, you can't do my hair today." I said, "Oh, okay, well, okay, why? Did I do something?" "You don't have no silk on." I said, excuse me? "You don't have no silk on." I said, "Mr. Brown." So I looked around, make sure wasn't nobody looking, and I got in his ear like this and I said, "My underwears are silk." I was on channel 8, what was that? Where I told the story about my nose.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Brown, we were at a gig and I had to do his hair, and there was this big mirror in front of him. So I was rolling his hair and he kept looking at me. And I said, "Oh, okay, he's not in a good mood. Here we go." "Yeah, something wrong with your nose." So I was doing this and I looked in the mirror. I said, what's wrong with my nose? "There's nothing wrong with my nose." "Yes, it is. Something wrong with your nose." I said, "Oh, Mr. Brown, I haven't had an accident, anything that looks the same to me." "Miss Hyde, I want you to see a doctor right away. Your nose is too big." I said, "Okay." I said, "Well, all right, if you say it's too big, okay. I don't know what a doctor's going to do, but so I just thought, I said, "Okay, fine, no problem, whatever you say." But these are some of the things that I go through with James Brown. Yes, ma'am.
How authentic was the movie that was made about his life?
I'm sorry, say that.
How authentic was the movie that was made about his life?
Well, I really didn't care for it because I thought that it was a little bit too much Hollywood, and I know that some of the things, as far as the band was concerned, wasn't really true, and I wasn't happy about it. When I saw the movie, I was looking for something like a Ray Charles movie, where you feel like it's a classic and it'll last forever. Whenever you're going to see it, you wouldn't mind seeing it over and over again. But I haven't seen it anymore. I'm not happy about it. Yeah, that's just my
He
opinion.
seemed to be like 6'1" or something. I mean, he had.
Yeah, and then plus he had ugly feet. Yeah, he had ugly feet. Mr. Brown had really nice small feet and neat, you know. And he was too tall, but he did a wonderful job, though, really. He did. He really did a wonderful job.
Did you appear on this television show, the one that was kind of like a...
Teacher Sharp?
Yes.
Yes. The lovely Miss Mother
That's just so crazy.
That was a replica of Soul Train. Yes, sir.
It's an interesting question. Obviously, a lot of tension about American countries. Have you ever been asked to sing national anthem?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. And I always, when I look at some of the people that have sang the national anthem, I was like, oh my God. I don't want them to ask me because, especially not now. Yeah, no, I have never been asked, but it would be an honor if, if so, yes.
Anyway, you can sing anything for us?
Yes, I'm going to do a few of my songs from... So I guess we should get into it. Are there any more questions?
The title of the book.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. The title of my book is "He's a Funny Cat, Miss High," and that's a saying that Mr. Brown had whenever he thought that things wasn't right in his eyes. One time Mr. Brown was on stage and he was performing with the guys. He was performing, and something happened on the stage, and he kind of looked over in the wings, and this guy was standing in the wings, and he was just laughing, and Mr. Brown looked at him and he said, "What are you laughing at? What's funny?" And he said, "Yes," he looked around to the band and said, "Look at y'all see that cat back there? He's laughing. It's a funny cat." So he, when he didn't feel like things were the way that he felt they should be, he would always say, "That's a funny cat, Miss High." Now I'm going to tell you one more insert in my book, story. We were in Italy, we were traveling, we were on tour in Italy. And we stopped at this restaurant on the side of the road, a beautiful restaurant. One of the promoters had been there before, so he suggested that we stop there to have something to eat. And of course, Mr. Brown had an entourage with him, so it was about maybe 6 or 8 of us with him. And so we all went into the restaurant, and they had a table set up, and waiting for us to come there. So we all sat down. Mr. Brown sat at the head of the table. And Mr. Brown loved to talk. And we never could get a word in, just listen and like, "Oh yeah? Okay, yeah, sure, So we never really had a chance to say anything. So the waiter came over and brought the menus and passed the menus out and everything. Mr. Brown, we always let him order first. And when it would come to me, I could never order. I stopped ordering for myself because every time I ordered for myself, he would say, "Miss High, you gonna get sick, and I'm not gonna help you. If you have to go to the hospital, I'm not gonna do nothing for you. Because you don't know what you ordered." And he would have a little attitude for a while. So instead of going through all of that, I would say, "Okay, I'm just gonna let him order from now on." So and he had this crazy way when the waiter came over to the stage. He went to Mr. Brown and he said, "Mr. Brown, would you like to order?" He said, "Ladies first. Miss High, you want to order something?" And I said, he didn't know, you know. But if I had said, well, I want so-and-so, this guy ain't gonna get sick. So I let him order for me. So he ordered, I think it was prime ribs. And he ordered one for him and one for me. Everyone else ordered prime ribs. So he was talking, we were listening and everything, so finally the food came around, so they served Mr. Brown first. Well, Mr. Brown, they gave him his plate. He looked at the plate, still talking. This is, okay, I just kind of want to see what I'm going to do. So anyway, his plate was on the table, so he looked at his prime rib, and he had a cloth napkin beside the plate. He moved the plate over, opened up his napkin, laid it on the table. He took his fork. He took his fork and stabbed his prime rib, took it out of the plate and put it into the cloth napkin. He took the other part of the napkin and put it over top, and he went. And he politely opened it up, took the meat out, put it back in his plate, still talking. Yeah, now I'm waiting, and I'm tripping it, and just talking. So when we all got our prime rib, stories because everyone knows the downfalls that Mr. Brown has had and the accomplishments that he's had in his life. And I just wanted to share something personal, you know, to show that he was human. And he had funny ways. He didn't think he was funny, but we all did. You know? Yeah. He was definitely a funny cat. So that's what my book is about.
I have a question.
Yes.
I saw something on PBS and seeing him perform, and I'm just looking at TV, but I could see for myself, I felt like he had incredible energy.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
I never hear anything said about his energy, but I saw that something on Little Richard, and this gentleman was saying that he saw Little Richard at the club, and he said he was also, I guess they grew up in similar places.
Yes.
And they had, I was thinking that they probably had similar energy. He said that Little Richard came up to a table, a cocktail table, and bit the table and picked it up.
Yes.
The stuff still on the table, he was that strong.
Yes.
And so the energy that I saw like in this PBS thing, I was like, this man is almost like Hercules. Because of the energy and the duration of the energy.
Yes. You know? He was totally amazing. And like I said, you know, I feel like I learned a lot from him because he was such a great entertainer, you know, and he knew how to read his audience, and he felt, you know, a lot of times I would watch him and he would be looking in the audience and singing at the same time, but if he didn't get the response or the feeling that he felt that he should have, he would immediately change and go into another song. And he had, it was one time that he wore an outfit like Elvis Presley, with all of the rhinestones and things like that, and he would fall on his knees. And I'm telling you, sometimes when we get to the dressing room and he had taken off that suit, his knees looked like hash because those rhinestones were cutting his knee. But it didn't matter; he still would go out there and perform. You know, his knees would be really sore for a while, but he was such an amazing entertainer.
Were you around when he was writing one of the songs that we all know?
Well, I was always around when he wanted the band to play something, or yes, when he wrote a few songs and he called Maceo or Fred Wesley and he would give them parts to play. As a matter of fact, I was in Fred Wesley's room one time when Mr. Brown called and wanted him to write a part to a song that he had come up with. and he said, Fred, listen now, I want you to play this. Stop there, and then go. And believe me, Fred Wesley or Maceo Parker could write the song from that. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I love the James Brown stories you told, and you have a good impression of James Brown. And I see you had a lot of respect for him and called him Mr. Brown. Can you describe the motivation behind, and your paintings behind you?
Yes. Oh, I didn't know they were here. Okay, this sketch right here is actually owned by his daughter, Deanna Thomas, and I did this portrait of Mr. Brown. This is Mr. Brown, his son that died years ago, Teddy, and this is his father, Mr. Joe Brown. And his daughter was telling me one time that she don't have any photos of them, the three of them together. And so I just took 3 photos and sketched their faces. And I actually presented it to Mr. Brown, and he said, I don't like it. I said, okay, yes sir. Once before, he had come to my house and I had painted this picture of a little boy sitting on a curb with a big hat. And he said, Miss Howard, he said, where'd you get that painting from? I said, well, I painted it. He said, you painted that? And he just went over and he took my painting and walked away. And I said, Mr. Brown, wait a minute. He said, no, this is mine. It's my painting. So I said, okay. But I was inspired by his daughter to paint, to do the sketch. And so when I presented it to him, and he said he didn't like it, and I said, oh, okay. And he said, and my son ain't never had a mustache, so that's not him. I said, okay, I wonder where did this photo come from? But anyway, his daughter, she fell in love with the painting, and it's hers, you know, she owns it. Yes. The painting of Jesus Christ. I love the Lord.
All right.
First and foremost, I love the Lord. So when I was maybe 19, I did a drawing that was put up in my church in Victoria, Virginia. And I was really proud of it. I thought I did something, you know, but and they liked it and everything. But I enjoy doing biblical paintings, you know. So this painting is hanging up in the church in South Carolina in Carpentersville Baptist Church in North Augusta, South Carolina. And I had visited his daughter. His daughter's name is Deanna Brown Thomas, and I went to church with her one day, and she was saying, we don't have no picture in the back of the pulpit, you know. So I was like, wow, maybe I can draw something for you. And so I went home and decided to find a painting, something that I would enjoy. I love curves and lines and everything, so I chose this painting, Jesus Walking on Water. And when I finished the painting, it stands about 6 feet tall. Yeah, and then when I finished the painting, I called her my niece Deanna. She came over and she saw the painting, and I said, do you think you might like to have this in your church? And she said, oh my gosh, I love it. So she said, I'll talk with my pastor, and she did. He came over and saw the painting, and he was just like really, really excited, and he said, we would love to have the painting in the church. So now it hangs up in the church in North Augusta. Can you do this for me? Oh, okay. Okay, this goes in this hand. Wait a minute. No, yeah, this goes in this hand. This goes. This painting here. Let everybody see it. These hands are belongs to the bass player of Maceo Parker, Rodney Skeet Curtis. I think that he is the baddest, the funkiest bass player, funky bass player I've ever heard. And he just mentioned one day that he would like to have a painting of his hands, just only his hands. And so I pulled up one of his photos online. I pulled up one of his paintings online, and I just decided to do the painting for him. And actually, the strings are actually real strings. So when I showed it to him, he was just like, "Oh, Miss Hyde, thank you so much." So he owns that painting as well. So being that he's my favorite bass player, I was like, you know, you can have that if you play on my album. And he actually played on my album. It's High Time, which is here. It's High Time, and he played on. Let me see, where. He Said, She Said, and I think Stay Tonight. Rodney Skeet Curtis played on that, on those songs. And again, this is the original sketch that I made for Professor Boyd. Okay.
Richmond, Virginia. Are we ready?
Okay, let's get the mic together and then don't bother anymore. Okay. Right. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, and and get the music. How it was when it first started was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll start over. Is that okay? Testing 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. That's a little bit too much. Yeah. 1 2 1 2 1 2. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 2 1 2 1 2. A little bit more. A little bit. Yeah, right there, right there. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, we start again over. Okay.
Bear with us, everybody.
Yeah, please bear with me. This is my first time ever singing with tracks. Yeah, except for one time on the Jerry Springer show. Yeah, James Brown, we were a guest that day. All right, come on in, put your hands together.
more love for Miss Martha. She would have come and been a part of it, but she was in France and it was in the wintertime or something, she couldn't come. And what I want to say to you all is that, since Aretha Franklin passed, the Queen of Soul, we have a lot of legends out here that are not being honored. And I feel that
we also want to take this time once again to thank Ms. Adele Johnson and Mary Lauderdale. We met with them back in March of this year in a meeting right out there at the foyer in the Woodworth's lunch counter, so to speak, outside. And we went over all of these works. Adele was on it. She was enthusiastic. She said, let's go ahead and do this. But prior to that meeting, it took me about 6 months to connect with you guys in order to get this meeting together for this exhibit. Also like to take the time to thank the academic community. I'd like to first give thanks to the art departments of both Virginia State University and Virginia Union University for helping us with this exhibit. This time we want to let you go ahead and to take a look at the art. You got to experience her singing prowess.
Hold on for me. We want to do this. My best friend, come on, we're going to give this Martha Jubilee. We done worked on this high and a donut long. They got there, but we want to give you something. All right, you can show it if you want to. She opened up now, because I want everybody to see what she got. This is a private moment. This is a moment that she needs. We know you're elegant. We know you walk in elegance. So we want to give you some elegance. We ain't enough for you, Lord.
No, I got one. As I was saying before I was interrupted, we have a bevy of art here. Okay, so now's the time for you to go about, take a look at the art. We are the curators of this, but there's none other than the artist herself. There's a row of 6 paintings out here in the back that you can take a look at and ask the artist some questions. Do not forget the book. The book is on sale. Albums. Does anyone remember 33 1/3? We still play them. Thank you very much. Okay. So thank you very, very much. Come on up and meet the artist.
Round of applause as we welcome a long-time friend from the James Brown group, Miss Martha Hart. All right. Miss Martha Hart.
To you, and you, and you, and you too. Now you guys know who I'm talking to. Those who stay out all night long and expect us to come home when you get there. But let me tell you something. I said, let me tell you something. The sisters are not going for that mess no more. Because we realize 2 things. That you aren't doing anything for us that we can better do for ourselves. So from now on, I said from now on, from now on, from now on, we're gonna use what we got. I don't think you heard me. I said we're gonna use wanted to.
All right. You feel good, Martha?
Come on, let's do it.
Here we go. If you don't work, you can't eat. If you don't work, you can't eat. If you don't work, you can't eat. If you don't work, you can't eat.
Yeah, yeah. Screaming. I don't care about your past. I just want our love to last.
I don't care about the way you treat me, baby. No, I just wanna, baby, just wanna satisfy your honey. Get the breach, hey.
When you kiss me,
Sit through your master, no.
you hold my hand.
You make me understand. I began.
If it's not in your vision, don't make no decision. Get on down, get on down, in a little tent, and just like the river, I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change is gonna come. Oh, yes it is. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die. But I might not be if I knew what was out there beyond the skies. It's been a long time coming, but I know my change is gonna come. Thank you. Merci. Ding against the men. Now, ladies and fellas, I wonder if you remember this song a long time ago called Ring My Bell. Remember Ring My Bell? All right, well, I think that Mr. Brown kind of stole a little bit and made this song for me. The Ding Dong Man. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna play a little game. Now, ladies, I'm gonna give you a part to sing.
Up and down.